Disco Mute here. This is a 1,000-point part of our Escalation League battle report. Had a couple here. First game was against Chaos. This is my force that I took. Standard loadout for my Old Blood and Enterzen. He usually has a horned one, but not a great conversion there, but we couldn't afford it because of the 250-point cap. Sky Choir with the Ruby Ring. Yes, I run a Troglodon. I love my paint job and I love the model. It's no good, but I am trying to lower my power a bit. Same with why the crop score there, just to have some more fun games. So went up against a Chaos Warrior with a pretty good list, I thought. No Fireball, and I did not get first turn. So we went straight at it and failed Stupidity on my even with the Renegade rules on my first turn. And they came through. Now, he made a tiny little mistake here that came back to bite him because he left his Chaos Spawn right there, right in front of, just marginally in front of that unit. So on the second turn, I got the charge off with the Troglodon, and I was really stoked. I rolled well. I got Hammer Hands off. He did things. He killed a few models, lost combat one by one, only gave ground. Meanwhile, I was quite happy I didn't think any of these had much chance against a kitted out Knight unit, so we were happy just to simply draw points from the objectives, which both my Skinks and my Saurus did. Now, the problem was when he wanted to follow up, he couldn't because the Chaos Spawn had blocked him there. So on the second turn, like I said, he was failed because of the way they random movement, the way random movement works. He nudged himself forward. I was expecting a long-range charge to see what would happen, but he brought himself in there, and that just let me keep scoring points on the objectives. I was not interested in going as far away as possible, score as many objectives as I could before I get totally demolished by them. The the Chaos Spawn came into the side of the Troglodon, and again, I just was rolling amazingly with the Troglodon. Hammer Hands, I think I only got a wound off, and he probably took one, but he gave ground, and I think she maybe took two. He gave ground, which was directly there, but he didn't die, and his Lord swept around the back. In my turn, then my Old Blood on the charged, and two of them just demolished the spawn, and we just continued to throw a few javelins and secure objective points. I was again just getting objective points there, and my Croxagore pivoted and got ready to take on the charge. Now he, after having shuffled forward, realised that he needed to move, and he needed to get I think 4, including Swift Stride, and he failed, and he shuffled forward about 3 inches. So again, super lucky. But his general charged a Croxagore and smashed them. They lost, I think, 5 wounds. They still had 2 models and gave fell back in good order, and the general just continued to plough. But because we'd beaten the Chaos Spawn here, both the Troglodon and the Old Blood followed up into the Chaos Warrior unit. Because I had the Old Blood there, we were too good, and they ended up breaking and fleeing. Again, just rolling really well. And eventually it looked like this. So we made a long distance charge. The Saurus actually managed to get a charge off against the Knights because of their failed one. And without Lancers, definitely made up for the fact that I didn't have that second row. And we just slowly cut them down, and or maybe even lost the first round of combat. I can't remember, but we were rolling well, killed 1 or 2. Meanwhile, the general was just absolutely dominating there. Yeah, we made that charge, and these two came forward. They rolled really badly and ended up breaking with his Knights. I would have run them down, but his single hound there did a fantastic job of blocking. As you can see, we were in combat. Eventually his Knights rally, but this time it's not just the Saurus he's facing, it's also the Old Blood who charges in, and it's just too much. They eventually get run down and die. My Troglodon was on 1 wound, I remember, after all of this, so he chickened out the rest of the combat. They want to give him 200 points. And eventually we had a general off in the middle, and his general, I think, got a 1 wound through, mine got none. The Giant Blade, maybe not as good as I always play Skaven and Wood Elves, and the lack of armor penetration was really hurting me. My Warriors moved up to us to claim the baggage train, and I won fairly easily, and it was mostly due to good luck, particularly with the Troglodon. You probably could have been more aggressive with the Knights, but overall, he just had one of those games on the dice. And yeah, Giant Blade, not as good when it runs up to things with armor. Armor Bane 2 is nice. I just couldn't get any sixes, but it was a really, really fun game. And on to the second game. Now, this was probably my most fun I've had in this tournament, this game. And I did not get Fireball, and I got the second turn. So I wasn't loving this, but I felt like I matched up pretty well against this list. So first turn, my skinks just move up and start securing the objective. They're not going to do much. They throw javelins at the cannons. My Saurus move up and secure an objective. Probably should have. I reckon I could have if I positioned it well, so they maybe could have scored 2 at once. I didn't really think of that at the time. So I thought we were going to have a general versus the Bretonian Knights with 2+ save. The Giant Blade not looking good. Anyway, boom, they actually charged the Saurus, and we held up all right. I think we got one dead with the Fireball, and I think we cooked another one down. Good old Obsidian Blades. Now, in overall, he was clearly going to win on a long run. However, boom, my old blood managed to get that flank charge off. Now, we won here, cut a few down. My old blood did nothing to the 2+ save, but they broke and they fled, and we missed running them down by the narrowest margins. It was only because his infantry had moved up. And I didn't take too many photos. I forgot to take some of my favorite game. My Croxagore charged here and just got absolutely rolled. They got shot and magicked, and when they got into combat, they didn't do anything, and they just got wiped out. I kept throwing. I got 2 wounds on that, and then eventually they broke, and because they broke, they ended up around here, those knights. There's only like 2 of them left, and they ended up after like a big all-in fight going on for a couple of turns with the Saurus and the Old Blood. So they ended up actually going and mopping up those skinks. The Saurus ended up in combat with them, but they were severely depleted by their battles with the knights, and they basically got me down to 1, which is the champion, who broke and fled. Now, all in all, most Croxagore were wiped out, the Skinks were wiped out. But I was looking at this like I'm not that far behind on points. I got a lot of objectives early. Unfortunately, got a few back, and the in the last thing I did at my Old Blood, I charged the crossbowmen and managed to get them all out. I had all them out. I think maybe it was a Fireball. I can't remember. So he had his 2 units left, but when you did the maths, I had all my characters, which was a lot, and because I had 1 fleeing champion, that was again not the full unit, and I ended up losing with all the objectives and that by like it was like 110. I was so close to a draw. My Fireball had a god off, and I had got 1 more wound on that cannon. The that that block, sorry, it was that block actually ended up in combat with the kept getting cut down, as well as me ending up on 1. It ended up on 2 models and fleeing away, whereas the spearmen were actually the one who came back and mopped up in the end after having dealt with the Croxagore. So knocked off 2 more models, I would have probably won. I knocked off some crossbowmen or an extra wound there, would have been a draw. I definitely could have done a little better on objectives. My big flaw in my game was I'm so stupid. So here I was all scattered out with my skinks throwing arrows, trying to get 6s on that cannon. And I forgot the baggage train was right there. I easily could have at the start just moved into contact with it, destroyed it, and it would have let me 1. So I actually kind of like losing in ways that I can learn from rather than just like the dice was bad or the game's unbalanced. So this was actually quite a balanced game in both dice and lists, I thought, and I think his tactics were just a bit better than mine. And I actually, enjoy losing that way the most. Of course, the other way to look at it is if 1 more champion had died, he would have easily won, having gotten the full VPs of that unit. But it was a loss, but it was a very, very fun game. Dice was even. So Giant Blade, the Old Blood did nothing all game against armor. Even the amount of 3s he rolled on armor against the infantry lord that was in combat with was just a tease. On an Obsidian Blade would have done better. I could have been more on top of objectives. So that's what I'm going to learn. Baggage train and both lading it. You love playing this. And I deserved a loss. When you looked at the battle board at the end of the game, wish I'd taken more photos. But I do really enjoy games where you play the scenario and actually come out on top or a draw. So that was it. Two fun games, and I have to end on saying you guys definitely play the old world. If you're not, it's in a fantastic state, and it's a lot of fun at the moment.